Chinese tech giant Huawei, I told you we're going to get to Huawei, didn't I? Well, they're headed out on a national tour holding public forums in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Canberra. The talks aim to, quote, let ordinary Australians make up their own minds about whether this controversial company should be allowed into the nation's 5G network. Stephen Conroy now, you see him here a lot on Sky. I'll remind you, he was the Communications Minister in opposition. He was the Shadow Minister when I worked for the Communications Minister in the Coalition Howard years, but he became the Minister himself all the time during the Rudd government. He's very vocal on this issue. We often talk about this off camera between shows, and I thought, well, we better bring this debate out and help you understand some of the back room of the issues, and we're going to do that right now here tonight. Stephen, thanks very much for coming on the show. This is a real rare piece of bipartisanship, isn't it? It has been long-standing inside the Parliament on this issue. Help people understand the concern governments have, I want to say around the world, particularly in the West, but Britain's now the outlier, for the involvement of Huawei in the 5G network?
Well, look, there are significant National Intelligence Agency briefings that you get as a minister, and you would have received when you were Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, and would be very familiar with them. And those briefings essentially say it's not possible to mitigate the risk of Chinese ability to penetrate, spy, surveil a network that is built with Chinese kit. The most fundamental reason is that Article 7 of the National Intelligence Act of China compels, requires by law, that the Chinese citizens and Chinese companies must follow directives from Chinese intelligence agencies. It is very black and white, and I wish the Huawei team good luck in their national speaking tour. They will assure you that they will defy the Chinese government. But I saw a very senior official of Huawei interviewed at a Australian Financial Review conference, and it was a train wreck of an interview as he tried to pretend that he would stand up to China, a company that owns and controls the company which he worked for.
I mean, the problem is, and I 100% endorse what you're saying there. There's also serious racketeering charges being put to the company out of the United States. Knowing all of this, and I have great respect for the intelligence services in the United Kingdom, knowing that they know what you and I know, why on earth do they get themselves into the position where they've not only gone down a path that I think once it's been built, this network will become incredibly compromised and they'll have to live with the consequences, but they've destroyed, I think, a lot of the trust they had in the Five Eyes partnership, certainly the trust between the United Kingdom and the United States. Why do it?
Well, look, they seem to be convinced by the economic argument. What I mean by that is it's going to cost billions and billions of dollars more to build the 5G network in the UK if you exclude Huawei.
Sorry, and let me just jump in there, and that's because they've already got some sunk investment from Huawei, haven't they? Some Huawei networks, so if they had to rip them out and build them again, you'd be adding that cost to the overall cost of a 5G build. Absolutely,
but what you've got to assess here is what is the value you place on your national security, what is the value you place on your citizens' privacy. I mean, I just simply work on the basis that I expect China to treat me as an Australian citizen the same way they treat an Australian citizen. That is to surveil and spy on me all the time if they get the opportunity to.
Well, I'm sure they have looked at your phone and my phone, Stephen Conroy, plenty of times. Do you think there's any chance? Do you think there's any chance that Boris Johnson may see the light and alter his position on this?
Well, look, I hope he listens to the arguments being put forward. There's clearly a division in the United Kingdom, even among his new cabinet colleagues. You saw recently two members of the Australian Parliament who confronted the UK Minister, Anthony Byrne and Andrew Hastie, and good on them for taking it up to him, saying, what do you think you're doing? You're breaking trust. You're endangering Australia's national security if you allow this bill to take place. All right, we're going to leave it there.